Oh my, whoa. Hello everybody again. I just got back from a month-long sort of jaunt around the country, and the highlight of all of this traveling was supposed to be my first extended backpacking expedition. We were planning on spending 4 days in the Enchantments region of Washington State. The Enchantments are part of the Alpine Lakes Wilderness, which is just an area in the mountains east of Seattle. The permit to backpack this area is one of the most coveted in Washington State. Fortunately, or unfortunately, because of the timing, we snagged a permit for the end of May, which is very early season, and so we were in this rush to prepare for this trip. Now, this Enchantments backpacking loop is not a walk in the park. I spent about a month and a half leading up to the trip preparing with a fairly strenuous regimen of running and incline running, stair running, weighted step-ups, a lot of lunges and leg exercises just to prepare myself for carrying a heavy pack over all this rough terrain. So all in all, the hike covers about 15 miles, and because of the early season, we were expecting rain and then also to be snow camping because the snow would still be covering the area at that elevation. And the most difficult part of the trip was a pass called Asgard Pass, which rises 2,200 feet into the mountains over only 3/4 of a mile, so extremely steep. And because of the early season nature of our trip, we would be doing that in snow. And so this required training on the correct usage of an ice axe for arresting falls, and also the use of crampons and specific types of hiking techniques, I guess. So the weekend before my trip, I boarded a flight to Seattle. So I've arrived in Seattle for the weekend before our hiking trip, and this is going to be my home for the next couple days. Really tired. It's like 4:30 a.m. Eastern, so I'm gonna go to bed. The next day, I completed a hike to Advanced Base Camp on Mount Rainier. So that hike started at about 5,000 feet and climbed steadily into the clouds. And on our way up, we had some great views of Mount St. Helens, Mount Baker, and the surrounding mountain ranges. So that particular hike from the base of Mount Rainier to Advanced Base Camp, it covers about 5,000 feet in elevation over 4 miles. It took us just about 5.5 hours, and we ended at just about 10,000 feet. Oh my God.
Taking off the boots.
Made it to Muir. Camp Muir. That was rough. The last 500 feet or so, I just told my mind, I told my body, I was just like, you're fucking making this one step after the other. Did it. So we used that opportunity to practice ice axe safety, climbing the snow, steep snow climbing and stuff like that. And so all this to say, I felt very prepared. So I was ready and our group were ready, but the weather unfortunately was not. Okay, this is the day of the trip. So a little update. The weather window is looking pretty awful. So there's a high chance we're bailing on the Enchantments. It really sucks with all the training we've done. There was a precipitation front that was starting the Pacific Ocean and crossing across to the Cascades, which would hit our Enchantments region at the exact 3 days we were planning on backpacking. It was forecasted pretty much constant rain, a little bit of snow as well, and then foggy conditions. The Park Service were issuing avalanche warnings for that pass, Asgard Pass, and with the drop in temperature, we just weren't comfortable with our ability to stay dry, thus avoiding hypothermia and problems that might happen 2 days into our trek in this remote wilderness area. So the trip had to be canceled. I had been so singularly focused on this objective that, in the past 3 weeks, I've just felt this weird lack of motivation to do anything. And this rarely happens to me, but I guess it could just be a matter of perspective. So to rewind a little bit, instead of doing our big expedition, the Enchantments, we ended up doing a single overnight trip, just as like a consolation prize in the shadow of Mount Baker. So we strapped on our snowshoes, took about a 2-mile hike up to Artist Point, and we pitched our tents right in the snow. You know, we happened to have a really good night where the moon was full and we had a great view of the surrounding mountain ranges in Canada, and it was an amazing trip. Unfortunately, in the shadow of what could have been, in the shadow of that large backpacking expedition that we spent months preparing for, it just felt like a letdown. It felt anticlimactic. So I guess I realized that the ease of this single overnight really could be contributed to the effort we put in training. And it's often more about the journey than the final destination, but it's hard to get the satisfaction without that closure of meeting your planned goal. So I guess to cap this off, I'm trying to remember this when I look back on this trip. Hopefully I'll get another chance to attempt the trip in the future, but until then I am proud of the preparation that we all put in, and I'm happy I had the experience. So anyway, that's the story. That's where I've kind of dropped off the map for the past 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, or a month. I can't remember when the last time I put out a video, but I'm hoping to get back in the swing of things. We're moving in July, so maybe a couple videos before then, and then after that, maybe more frequently. I'm not sure. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I will see you hopefully very soon.